Speaking test instructions. The speaking test is 20 minutes. There are 8 tasks in the speaking test. Please try your best to answer all the questions.
Start speaking now. Time is up. 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 Start speaking now. Time is up.
Stephanie, this situation puts you in an uncomfortable position where personal preferences conflict with potential professional consequences, requiring careful navigation. Nevertheless, you have the right to set boundaries about your time and energy even when facing social or professional pressure. First and foremost, evaluate the actual professional risk versus your perception of risk. Will declining this invitation truly damage your career? Or are you catastrophizing potential consequences based on anxiety rather than evidence? Furthermore, consider that most reasonable professionals understand that wedding party participation is a significant commitment requiring close personal relationships, and declining respectfully shouldn't affect your work relationships if handled appropriately. Additionally, being in a wedding party involves substantial time commitments for dress fittings, showers, bachelorette parties, rehearsals, and the wedding itself, plus significant financial costs that you shouldn't feel obligated to incur for someone you're not close to. Moreover, participating inauthentically in such an intimate role might actually feel more awkward and create more tension than politely declining with a gracious explanation. Although there's some professional risk, consider whether you want to work in an environment where personal boundaries aren't respected and saying no to personal requests carries professional penalties. Consequently, I'd recommend declining the invitation with appreciation and diplomacy, emphasizing your honored feeling about being asked while explaining that current commitments make wedding party participation impossible, but offering to attend as a guest instead. Additionally, you could frame your decline around schedule conflicts or financial constraints rather than lack of closeness, providing face-saving explanations that maintain professional relationships. If your boss truly holds this personal decision against you professionally, that reveals problematic workplace dynamics worth knowing about. The key is communicating your decision respectfully and professionally while standing firm on your personal boundaries rather than sacrificing months of your time out of fear. 4 years ago, I made a regrettable decision to purchase a luxury sports car that was far beyond what I reasonably needed or could comfortably afford. The monthly payments stretched my budget significantly, and the insurance and maintenance costs created ongoing financial stress that lasted for 3 years until I finally sold it at a substantial loss. Furthermore, I had convinced myself that this purchase was justified because I had received a promotion and deserved to reward myself for career success. The decision was driven primarily by emotion and status concerns rather than practical transportation needs. Additionally, I was influenced by a persuasive salesperson who emphasized the investment value and prestige of the vehicle while downplaying the total cost of ownership beyond just the monthly payment. What led to this poor decision was a combination of factors including lifestyle inflation after my promotion, desire to project success to peers and colleagues, and failure to consider long-term financial goals like saving for a house down payment or retirement. Moreover, I made the purchase impulsively during a single dealership visit rather than taking time to research alternatives, compare costs, or sleep on the decision. I also ignored the advice of my partner who questioned whether we could truly afford the expense, convincing myself that the career advancement justified the splurge. The financial strain of the car payments meant delaying other important goals and limited our flexibility when unexpected expenses arose. Eventually, I sold the car and purchased a reliable used vehicle for a fraction of the cost, immediately feeling relief from the reduced financial burden. This experience taught me several crucial lessons about money management and decision-making. Most importantly, I learned to separate self-worth from material possessions and to distinguish between what I want versus what I truly need. Additionally, I developed a personal rule to wait at least 1 week before making any purchase over a certain amount, allowing emotional impulses to subside and rational thinking to prevail. This dynamic illustration depicts a vibrant community garden during a Saturday morning volunteer day, where neighborhood residents of all ages are working together to cultivate and maintain shared green space in an urban environment. The garden is organized into raised wooden planting beds arranged in neat rows, with stone pathways connecting different sections of the cultivated area. In the foreground, a group of volunteers wearing gardening gloves and sun hats are planting seedlings in freshly tilled soil, carefully measuring spacing between each plant while referring to laminated instruction sheets. Meanwhile, a bearded man in denim overalls is using a wheelbarrow to transport compost from a large bin to various garden plots, demonstrating proper soil enrichment techniques to curious onlookers. On the right side of the scene, several children are enthusiastically watering plants with colorful plastic watering cans, occasionally spraying each other and laughing while their parents supervise nearby. Additionally, a community educator is conducting a small workshop near a vertical trellis covered in climbing bean plants, explaining companion planting strategies to interested gardeners who are taking notes. The background features a tool shed painted in cheerful yellow with garden implements hanging on exterior hooks, while beyond the fence, apartment buildings and office towers create a striking contrast between nature and urban development. Furthermore, handmade signs identify different plots with family names and indicate what vegetables are being grown: tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and herbs. What makes this community initiative particularly significant is how it transforms underutilized urban land into productive green space, fostering environmental awareness, providing access to fresh organic produce, and strengthening neighborhood connections through collaborative outdoor work. Initially, the urban gardeners will continue tending their designated raised beds, whereas volunteers will transport fresh soil and compost using wheelbarrows to areas requiring replenishment. Subsequently, experienced gardeners will likely provide guidance to newcomers on proper planting techniques and seasonal vegetable varieties, while simultaneously, children will enthusiastically water their family's plot with colorful watering cans. Meanwhile, the community will presumably harvest mature vegetables like tomatoes and peppers from established plants, and consequently, families might exchange produce or share gardening tips with neighboring plot owners. Furthermore, as the afternoon progresses, some members will take breaks to socialize near the tool shed, discussing crop yields and sustainable gardening practices. Despite the urban setting surrounded by towering skyscrapers, this green oasis provides therapeutic respite from city life. Nevertheless, gardeners remain committed to maintaining their plots even during busy schedules. In addition, the community plot sign suggests collaborative projects where residents work together on shared harvests. In conclusion, this thriving urban community garden demonstrates how city dwellers can cultivate fresh produce, strengthen neighborhood bonds, and promote environmental sustainability, thereby transforming unused urban spaces into productive and socially valuable green infrastructure. Catherine, I understand your desire to require Nathan to complete piano through the competition, but I believe allowing him to quit immediately is actually the right decision that respects his feelings and supports his overall well-being. First and foremost, Nathan has clearly communicated that continuing piano is making him miserable, and forcing him to persist in an activity he's grown to resent will only deepen negative associations and potentially damage his relationship with music entirely. Furthermore, At 14 years old, Nathan is developing his own identity and interests. And part of healthy adolescent development involves making choices about how to spend his time, rather than continuing activities solely because parents initiated them years ago. Additionally, the 8 years of piano study have already provided Nathan with musical knowledge, discipline, and appreciation that will benefit him throughout life regardless of whether he continues formal lessons. Moreover, the time and energy Nathan currently dedicates to unwanted piano practice could be redirected toward activities that genuinely interest him, potentially revealing new passions that align better with his authentic self. Although we've invested significant money and time into his piano education, continuing purely to avoid feeling that investment was wasted represents sunk cost fallacy. Past investment shouldn't dictate future decisions when circumstances have changed. Consequently, allowing Nathan to quit now teaches him that his feelings matter, that we trust his judgment about his own life, and that it's acceptable to change direction when something no longer serves him. Despite the negotiated break option seeming like a compromise, it essentially delays the inevitable while prolonging Nathan's unhappiness and commitment to an activity he's clearly stated he wants to leave. The competition requirement, while teaching perseverance, actually teaches that commitments matter more than personal well-being and that his feelings are less important than external obligations. Don't you think Nathan's happiness and autonomy are more valuable than forcing him through one more piano competition? Catherine, while I appreciate your concern about Nathan's current feelings, I strongly believe that negotiating a break period represents the most balanced approach to his request to quit piano. First and foremost, Nathan's desire to quit might stem from temporary burnout or stress related to the upcoming competition rather than genuine permanent disinterest in piano, and a break allows him to gain perspective without making an irreversible decision. Furthermore, 8 years of dedication represents a substantial investment of time, money, and effort from our entire family, and completely abandoning piano immediately, especially right before a major competition, teaches Nathan that quitting when things become challenging is acceptable. Additionally, taking a temporary break after the competition provides Nathan with a clear endpoint for his current commitment while giving him freedom to explore whether he genuinely wants to stop or simply needs rest from the intensity of competition preparation. Moreover, this approach honors the commitment Nathan made to his teacher and competition organizers when he registered, teaching important lessons about following through on obligations even when motivation wanes. Although allowing him to quit immediately might reduce current stress, consider that Nathan might later regret abandoning piano without proper closure or having one final achievement to culminate his years of study. Consequently, a break period allows Nathan to step away without completely severing his connection to piano, preserving the option to return if his feelings change once competition pressure subsides. Despite the immediate quit option seeming respectful of his autonomy, it actually reinforces the message that discomfort justifies abandonment rather than teaching resilience and completion. The competition requirement alone, while teaching perseverance, doesn't address Nathan's legitimate need for space and reduced pressure. A negotiated break provides the best of both approaches, honoring commitments while respecting his need for relief. Don't you think this compromise teaches better life lessons than either extreme position? Jennifer, I need to have an honest conversation with you about your mother's request to move in during her treatment, and I hope you can hear my concerns without interpreting them as lack of compassion for her situation. First and foremost, I want to be clear that I care about your mother's health and well-being, and I understand this is an incredibly difficult time for your entire family. Nevertheless, having your mother live with us for 6 to 12 months would fundamentally disrupt our household in ways that would affect my ability to work, our children's routines, and our marriage dynamics. Furthermore, I work from home full-time, and losing my workspace and the quiet environment I need for video conferences and concentrated work would jeopardize my professional performance and potentially my employment. Additionally, our home honestly doesn't have adequate space to comfortably accommodate another adult for an extended period while maintaining everyone's privacy and personal space needs. Moreover, your mother has 3 other children who live nearby, and I don't understand why the caregiving responsibility should fall entirely on us, particularly when I'm the in-law rather than her biological child. Although I recognize family obligation is important to you, consider that there are alternative arrangements that would provide your mother with excellent care while preserving our household functioning. Consequently, I'd like us to explore options such as your mother staying with your siblings on a rotating basis, hiring in-home care at her own residence, or researching assisted living facilities that specialize in supporting people through medical treatment. Additionally, we could certainly commit to regular visits, helping with appointments and errands, and providing emotional support without completely upending our living situation. Despite your feelings that family obligation requires this sacrifice, I believe that preserving our marriage, my career, and our children's stability should be our primary responsibility. Don't you think we can support your mother effectively without sacrificing our own families' fundamental needs and household functionality? Barbara, I wanted to talk with you privately about your upcoming treatment and living arrangements, and I hope we can have an honest conversation about what would truly be best for you during this challenging time. First and foremost, please know that Paul and I care deeply about your well-being and want to support you through this illness in every way we can. Nevertheless, I want to gently suggest that staying with one of your other children might actually provide you with a better environment and more attentive care than living with us would offer. Furthermore, as you know, I work from home full-time with a demanding job that requires video conferences and concentration throughout the day, which means I wouldn't be able to provide the level of attention and support you'll need during treatment and recovery. Additionally, Paul's siblings Michael and Susan both work outside the home with more predictable schedules, meaning they could potentially arrange time off or be more present during evenings and weekends when you might need company or assistance. Moreover, Michael's home has a first-floor bedroom and bathroom that would be much more convenient during treatment than our second-floor guest room that requires climbing stairs when you're feeling weak or nauseous. Although I understand you feel closest to Paul and prefer to stay with us, consider that this arrangement might actually create more stress than support given our household dynamics and space limitations. Consequently, I'm concerned that staying here might leave you feeling isolated during the day when I'm working and Paul is at the office, whereas Michael or Susan's situations might allow for more consistent companionship. Additionally, spreading the caregiving responsibilities among all your children ensures that no single family bears the entire burden and allows everyone to contribute meaningfully to your care. Despite your preference to stay with us, I truly believe that alternative arrangements would provide you with better practical support and care during this difficult journey. Would you be willing to at least discuss the possibility with your other children? Mandatory voting with fines for non-participation would be problematic and potentially counterproductive, despite the goal of increasing civic engagement being laudable. First and foremost, voting is fundamentally about expressing political preferences and exercising democratic rights, which logically includes the right not to vote if someone finds no acceptable candidates or chooses not to participate. Furthermore, Forcing disengaged or uninformed citizens to vote might actually reduce the quality of democratic outcomes by compelling people to make random choices or vote based on name recognition rather than informed assessment. Additionally, mandatory voting with fines disproportionately burdens lower-income citizens who might face legitimate barriers to voting such as inflexible work schedules, lack of transportation, or difficulty accessing polling locations, essentially creating a poll tax that penalizes poverty. Moreover, some people abstain from voting for principled reasons, religious beliefs, political protest, or philosophical objections to the current system, and compulsory voting infringes on these legitimate expressions of conscience. Nevertheless, I acknowledge that low voter turnout is a genuine problem that affects democratic representation and legitimacy. Consequently, rather than mandatory voting, governments should focus on removing barriers to voluntary participation through measures like automatic registration, mail-in ballots, making Election Day a holiday, extended early voting periods, and improved civic education. Additionally, countries with voluntary voting can still achieve high participation rates when they make voting convenient and foster civic culture that values participation without legal compulsion. Some argue that mandatory voting increases political engagement and ensures all voices are represented. But evidence from countries with compulsory voting shows mixed results and persistent inequality in political influence despite universal participation. Therefore, protecting the freedom to abstain while making voluntary participation as accessible and convenient as possible represents a more appropriate balance between encouraging civic engagement and respecting individual liberty than penalizing non-voters with fines. Amy, you absolutely need to get to Pet Paradise on Main Street this weekend. While shopping with my neighbor Susan, I discovered the most incredible cat tree that would be absolutely perfect for Whiskers, Mittens, and Shadow. Instead of those boring carpeted towers we usually see, this one is designed to look like a massive castle complete with turrets, drawbridges, and even a miniature moat at the base. The entire structure is crafted from high-quality wood painted in stone gray colors with realistic brick detailing that makes it look like an authentic medieval fortress. What makes this truly exceptional is how each tower contains cozy sleeping compartments with plush velvet cushions. And there are multiple levels connected by rope bridges and spiral staircases that your cats can climb. Furthermore, the castle features little flags on top of each turret, scratching posts disguised as castle pillars, and even small windows where cats can peek out like royalty surveying their kingdom. Not only is it incredibly functional with hiding spots, perches, and play areas, but it's also an actual piece of furniture that enhances room decor rather than being an eyesore. Since the store prohibits photography of their exclusive designer pieces, I couldn't capture any images. But trust me when I say this is nothing like the standard cat furniture you see everywhere. Given how much you spoil your cats and considering you just remodeled your living room, this castle would fit perfectly in that corner by the window. The sales associate mentioned they only have 2 left in stock and they're discontinuing this design. So you should really check it out soon.